Before you watch this emotional story about compassion, motherhood, and what happens when cruelty meets kindness, hit that like button right now and subscribe so you never miss these incredible moments that will move your heart. This story will absolutely restore your faith in people. Don't miss it, ***. It was a Saturday afternoon at Riverside Shopping Center, one of the most upscale malls in the city. The mall catered to wealthy customers. Luxury brands lined the corridors. The shops were elegant. The clientele was affluent. Everything about this place screamed wealth and exclusivity. A young woman named Amanda Torres, 28 years old, had come to the mall for one reason. She needed a new winter coat. She was a single mother working 2 part-time jobs, and her old coat had finally fallen apart. She'd saved money for months to afford a decent replacement. With her was her 18-month-old daughter, Sophia. Sophia was hungry, tired, and overstimulated by the bright lights and loud noises of the mall. She was crying. Not screaming hysterically, just crying, the kind of tired, whimpering cry that any parent recognizes as a signal that it's time to go home. Amanda was doing everything right. She was holding Sophia. She was bouncing her gently, trying to soothe her. She was speaking to her softly. She wasn't ignoring her child or being negligent. She was simply a tired mother trying to accomplish one task while managing a tired toddler. But as Amanda walked through the upscale section of the mall, the area where the most expensive shops were located, a group of well-dressed women noticed her. They were wealthy, clearly. Designer handbags, expensive jewelry, perfect hair and makeup. The kind of women who seemed to have never struggled a day in their lives. One of them wrinkled her nose in disgust as Amanda walked past. "Oh God, can you believe some people bring their screaming children to a place like this?" the woman said loudly, clearly intending for Amanda to hear. Another woman nodded in agreement. "It's so trashy," she said. "This mall is supposed to be upscale. You'd think they could enforce some kind of standards." "I know," a third woman added. "Why do people like that even bother coming here? They can't possibly afford anything. They should go to the outlet mall." Amanda felt tears of shame and humiliation filling her eyes. She walked faster, trying to escape the cruel comments. Sophia, sensing her mother's distress, cried even harder. The women laughed. They were actually laughing at a struggling mother and her crying baby. But what happened next, what unfolded over the next few minutes, would teach those women a lesson they would never forget and would ultimately change Amanda's life in ways she couldn't have imagined. To understand why this moment was so significant, you need to know the real story behind Amanda and what her life was actually like. Amanda Torres was 28 years old and one of the strongest people you'd ever meet, though she didn't realize it herself. 5 years ago, Amanda had been in a relationship with a man named David. She'd thought he was the one. She'd thought they'd build a life together. But when she became pregnant with Sophia, David panicked. He'd asked her to get an abortion. When she refused, he'd left. Amanda had raised Sophia entirely on her own. She'd worked through her pregnancy. She'd gone back to work 2 weeks after giving birth because she couldn't afford maternity leave. She'd struggled to find affordable childcare. She'd made sacrifices that most people couldn't even fathom. She now worked 2 part-time jobs. One as a cashier at a grocery store, one as a cleaning person in office buildings. Combined, these jobs paid her about $28,000 a year. Out of that, she paid for childcare, $800 a month, rent, $900 a month, food, utilities, transportation, medical care, and everything else a person and a toddler needed to survive. She had maybe $50 left over each month after all her basic expenses. She lived paycheck to paycheck. She couldn't afford to get sick. She couldn't afford emergencies. She couldn't afford anything beyond survival. But she showed up every day. She took care of her daughter. She worked her jobs. She kept her small apartment clean and organized. She read to Sophia every night before bed. She was doing everything right, despite impossible circumstances. The coat she'd saved for, that $120 winter coat, represented months of careful budgeting. She'd skipped lunches. She'd foregone new clothes for herself. She'd taken odd jobs for extra cash. She'd saved penny by penny. And she'd decided to treat herself by going to the upscale mall instead of the outlet mall or a big box store. She'd wanted, just for an afternoon, to feel like she belonged in a nice place. She'd wanted to pretend, for a few hours, that she wasn't poor. Instead, she'd been publicly humiliated by women who'd never had to struggle for anything. The women were part of a group that had known each other since high school. They were what people call old money, Their families had been wealthy for generations. They'd never had to work for anything. They'd inherited money, property, businesses. Everything had been handed to them. These women, let's call them Margaret, Victoria, and Susan, had never been told no. They'd never experienced consequences. They'd never had to wonder how they'd pay their bills. They lived in a bubble of privilege so complete that they couldn't even conceive of what Amanda's life was like. They saw poverty as a character flaw. They believed that poor people were poor because they were lazy or stupid or unmotivated. They had no idea about systemic inequality, about childcare costs, about medical debt, about the compound effects of starting life from behind. In their minds, Amanda was simply a person of lower social status who didn't belong in their mall. The setting asterisked the upscale section of Riverside Shopping Center. Saturday afternoon. Crowds of shoppers. Designer stores. Expensive shops. Amanda with her crying toddler, trying to navigate to one of the few stores she could afford. The conflict asterisk, there's a fundamental clash between Amanda's reality, a struggling single mother doing her best, and the wealthy women's perception of who deserves to shop in an upscale mall. There's a question about whether someone's financial circumstances should determine their right to dignity and respect. The stakes asterisk not just Amanda's feelings, though those certainly mattered, but the question of what kind of people these women were. The question of whether anyone would step up for Amanda. The question of whether kindness would prevail over cruelty. Amanda was walking toward the coat store when she felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see an older woman, probably in her 60s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. The woman was wearing a simple but elegant dress. She didn't have the ostentatious wealth display of Margaret, Victoria, and Susan, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone truly secure in who she was. "Excuse me, dear," the woman said gently. "I heard those women making those comments. I want you to know that you have every right to be here. And that little one is absolutely beautiful." Amanda felt tears spring to her eyes. This stranger's kindness, after the cruelty she'd just experienced, hit her emotionally hard. "Thank you," Amanda whispered, her voice shaking. The woman, whose name was Eleanor Whitmore, introduced herself. She asked Amanda what she was shopping for. Amanda explained about the coat she'd been saving for. And then Eleanor did something extraordinary. "Come with me," Eleanor said, taking Amanda's hand. "I want to help you." Eleanor walked Amanda to a high-end coat store, one of the most expensive in the mall. Amanda protested immediately. "I can't afford anything here," Amanda said. "This is way too expensive." "Let me worry about that," Eleanor said. Inside the store, Eleanor helped Amanda try on coats. She picked out ones that would be warm and practical and beautiful. When Amanda found one she loved, a gorgeous charcoal gray wool coat with a silk lining, Eleanor asked to see the price. It was $280. Amanda's heart sank. She'd been saving for a $120 coat. This was completely beyond her budget. But Eleanor pulled out her credit card before Amanda could even protest. "This is my gift to you," Eleanor said. "For being an amazing mother. For working so hard. For bringing your beautiful daughter into this world and taking care of her all by yourself. That takes courage and strength. You deserve more kindness in your life." Amanda was crying now. She tried to refuse, but Eleanor was firm. She paid for the coat. But she didn't stop there. Eleanor took Amanda and Sophia to the mall's upscale food court. She bought them both a nice lunch. She sat with them and continued to listen to Amanda's story. As they sat together, Margaret, Victoria, and Susan walked past. They immediately recognized Eleanor. Their faces shifted. They clearly knew who she was and wanted to impress her. "Eleanor, what a wonderful surprise," Margaret exclaimed, hurrying over. Eleanor looked at the women with an expression of absolute disappointment. "I overheard you speaking to this young woman and her daughter a few moments ago," Eleanor said coldly. "I overheard you mocking her. I want you to understand something." She stood up, and her voice grew loud enough that other shoppers began to pay attention. "This woman is a single mother working 2 jobs to support her child. This woman has more courage and dignity in her little finger than you 3 have in your entire bodies. And she has every right to be in this mall, in any place she chooses to be." Eleanor's voice was scathing. "You've never had to struggle a day in your lives. Everything has been handed to you. And rather than using your privilege to be kind, you use it to mock people who are struggling. That says everything about your character." The entire food court was now silent, watching. "I know your families," Eleanor continued. "I'm going to have conversations with them about the kind of people you've chosen to be. and I suggest you think very carefully about whether this is who you want to be." Margaret's face went pale. Victoria looked like she might be sick. Susan started to say something, but Eleanor held up a hand to silence her. "I'm not interested in hearing excuses. I'm interested in you learning a lesson, which is, every person deserves basic human dignity. Every person deserves respect. And cruelty toward those with less wealth than you is not entertainment." The women tried to apologize, tried to make excuses, but Eleanor had already turned back to Amanda and Sophia. What the women didn't know was that Eleanor Whitmore was not just wealthy. She was extraordinarily wealthy. She was a philanthropist. She was on the boards of multiple charitable organizations. And she was well connected in this city. She was also known for her absolute intolerance of cruelty and unkindness. Over the next few weeks, Eleanor made good on her promise. She called Margaret's parents, Victoria's parents, and Susan's parents. She told them exactly what she'd witnessed. She explained how their daughters had mocked a struggling single mother in a public place. The parents were horrified. They were embarrassed. They were ashamed. They made their daughters apologize. They required them to do community service. They took away allowances and privileges. But more importantly, Eleanor took an interest in Amanda's life. Eleanor and Amanda became friends, an unlikely friendship between a wealthy philanthropist in her 60s and a struggling single mother in her 20s. Eleanor invited Amanda to events. She introduced her to people. She helped Amanda see possibilities that she hadn't considered before. Most significantly, Eleanor connected Amanda with a nonprofit organization that helped single mothers pursue education and career advancement. Through this organization, Amanda was able to enroll in community college while continuing to work. The organization provided childcare assistance for Sophia. Eleanor helped Amanda understand her own value. She helped her see that her struggles didn't define her. Her strength and character did. Over the next 3 years, Amanda completed her degree in business administration. She got a full-time job at a nonprofit organization helping low-income families. She was able to afford a better apartment. She was able to provide more for Sophia. And she remained close to Eleanor. They became genuine friends. They had dinner together regularly. They celebrated holidays together. But the story didn't end with Amanda alone. Eleanor decided to do something bigger. She established a scholarship fund specifically for single mothers pursuing education. The fund was endowed with $2 million of Eleanor's own money. The goal was to help women like Amanda, women who were working hard, raising children alone, and trying to build better lives for themselves and their families. The fund was named after Eleanor's own mother, who had been a single mother herself. It was called the Margaret Whitmore Memorial Fund for Single Parents in Education. Within 5 years, the fund had helped 247 single mothers pursue education and career advancement. Each one of them had a story like Amanda's, working multiple jobs, struggling to make ends meet, desperate for an opportunity. Each one of them got that opportunity because Eleanor had witnessed one cruel moment in a mall and decided to do something about it. Margaret, Victoria, and Susan, the women who'd been so cruel to Amanda, were also changed by their encounter with Eleanor. Margaret became a volunteer at a women's shelter. Victoria started working with an organization that provided job training to low-income women. Susan began volunteering with Amanda's organization, helping single mothers navigate employment and education opportunities. They'd learned their lesson. They understood, finally, what real charity and real kindness looked like. They understood that wealth came with responsibility. The story made local news. The local news made national news. Amanda's story, from single mother struggling to make ends meet to college graduate to nonprofit worker, became a symbol of what was possible when people showed kindness and compassion. But perhaps most significantly, something shifted in that mall. The upscale stores began partnering with the Margaret Whitmore Memorial Fund. They donated clothing and supplies. They offered discounts to single mothers in the program. What had been a place of exclusion became a place that welcomed all people, regardless of their economic status. 8 years after that Saturday afternoon at Riverside Shopping Center, Amanda Torres was thriving. She was 36 years old and held a good job at a nonprofit organization. She was making enough money to provide well for Sophia, who was now 10 years old. She had benefits. She had stability. She had hope for the future. But more importantly, she had the knowledge that people could be kind, that strangers could care. That one act of compassion could change someone's life forever. Amanda started mentoring single mothers who were just starting their journey. She volunteered with the Margaret Whitmore Memorial Fund, helping process applications and mentor recipients. She told her story regularly at community events. "I want people to understand something," Amanda would say when telling her story. "That day in the mall, I was at my lowest point. I was struggling so hard. I was questioning whether I was even doing the right thing as a mother. And then a stranger showed me kindness. A stranger showed me that I had value. A stranger showed me that my situation wasn't permanent." She would pause, her eyes often getting emotional. "That encounter changed my life. Because it wasn't just the coat, though that was wonderful. It wasn't just the lunch. It was the validation. It was someone saying, 'You deserve respect. You deserve kindness. You deserve to thrive.' That belief in me gave me the confidence to believe in myself." Eleanor, now in her 70s, continued her work with the foundation. She'd mentored hundreds of women. She'd impacted thousands of lives through her generosity and her commitment to kindness. The three wealthy women, Margaret, Victoria, and Susan, remained in contact with Eleanor and Amanda. They became genuine advocates for single mothers and low-income families. They used their privilege to lift others up rather than to mock them. Letters came in regularly to the Margaret Whitmore Memorial Fund from women who'd been helped. One woman wrote, "I was where Amanda was 8 years ago. I thought my life would never improve. But because of this fund, because of Eleanor's generosity, because of Amanda's mentorship, I'm in college now. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to provide a better life for my children. Thank you for believing in me." Another woman wrote, "When I was at my lowest point, someone showed me kindness. That kindness changed my life. Now I want to pay it forward. I'm volunteering with the foundation to help other single mothers. I want to be for someone else what Eleanor was for Amanda." The ripple effects continued outward. Women who'd been helped by the fund went on to help their own families. They became teachers, social workers, nurses, accountants, entrepreneurs. They became people who understood struggle and had compassion for others. The real moral asterisk. This story teaches us something profound about class, compassion, and human dignity. Those wealthy women in the mall didn't see Amanda as a human being. They saw her as a symbol of poverty, of lower social status. They saw her as someone unworthy of their respect or kindness. But Eleanor Whitmore understood something crucial. Every person deserves dignity. Every person deserves respect. Your bank account doesn't determine your worth. Your circumstances don't determine your value as a human being. Eleanor also understood something about the responsibility that comes with privilege. She understood that having wealth came with the obligation to use it wisely and kindly. She understood that compassion and generosity were not optional. They were moral imperatives. Most profoundly, Eleanor understood that one act of kindness could change someone's entire life trajectory. That a single kind word, a single act of generosity, could give someone the belief that they deserved better and could achieve better. The universal truth asterisk. We all have moments where we can choose cruelty or kindness. We all have moments where we can mock someone or show them respect. We all have moments where we can see someone as less than or see them as a fellow human being worthy of dignity. Those wealthy women mocked Amanda because she was different from them, because she didn't belong in their social world, because they could get away with it. There were no immediate consequences for them. But Eleanor stepped in. Eleanor showed that kindness was not weakness. Eleanor showed that standing up for someone vulnerable was actually an expression of strength and character. And most importantly, Eleanor showed that a single act of kindness doesn't just help one person. It ripples out. Amanda was helped. But then Amanda helped others. Those women helped others. Those women's families changed because they understood kindness. The whole community was transformed because Eleanor decided that mocking a struggling mother was unacceptable. For everyone watching this story asterisk, ask yourself, have I ever mocked someone for their circumstances? Have I ever treated someone as less than because of their economic status? Have I ever let cruelty happen in front of me without speaking up? Most of us have to some degree. Most of us have been complicit in situations where someone was being treated unkindly. The question is, what will we do about it going forward? Will we continue to allow cruelty? Or will we, like Eleanor, decide that every person deserves dignity and respect, regardless of their economic circumstances? Will we use our privilege, whatever form it takes, to lift people up? Will we show kindness when we could show cruelty? Will we defend someone who's being mocked? That's what this story is really about. It's about understanding that we have more power than we realize. It's about understanding that a single act of kindness can change someone's life. It's about understanding that every person, regardless of their circumstances, deserves to be treated with basic human dignity and respect. Did this story move you? Did it show you the transformative power of kindness and compassion? Smash that like button right now and hit subscribe, because stories like this prove that one person's willingness to show kindness can change lives, create movements, and transform entire communities. From a cruel moment in a mall to a multi-million-dollar foundation helping hundreds of single mothers. This is what happens when someone chooses compassion. You absolutely don't want to miss the next story, where one act of kindness creates a ripple effect that changes the world. Subscribe now, hit the notification bell, and let's keep celebrating the people who treat every human being with dignity and respect. Flex biceps red heart, sparkles asterisk asterisk.